Today I'm making pre-batched cocktails, also known as freezer door cocktails, which you can mix in advance in large quantities, put in the fridge and then just pour into glasses without the need to shake or stir anything. This video will be useful for those who decide to throw a party but want to hang out rather than spend all the time making cocktails, or if you're going on a picnic or camping and don't want to carry all your bar equipment with you. Dr. Cork is here to help you, right after you help Dr. Cork by hitting like. It is easy to batch cocktails. Just take a cocktail recipe you want, increase the ingredients proportionally and bottle it up. No magic involved, just math. But there are a few tips that I'm gonna give you. Tip number 1. Dilute. Cocktails are always diluted by 10 to 20% during a shake or a stir, and that's by design, because water is an important component of any cocktail, helping to bring out the flavors of other ingredients. I talked about it in a separate video, check it out. So when you're scaling a cocktail recipe, you need to add water as well, which could have been added during stirring or shaking with ice at room temperature. Without the water, your cocktail will be too strong and the flavors of the other ingredients will be muted. If you don't know how much water to add, just make a single serving of the cocktail and weigh the liquid before and after stirring or shaking, without the ice of course. And you'll know exactly how much water to add. Tip number 2. You can't batch everything. Cocktails consisting only of alcoholic ingredients, such as Negroni or Manhattan, are best when prepared in advance. They are even sometimes aged in oak barrels for months to add additional flavors. Liqueurs, vermouths, sherries, spirits all work great in a batch. Nothing will happen to syrups either, especially if you use a simple or a rich simple syrup. But if you add juices to the cocktails, especially freshly squeezed citrus juices, it's best to make your pre-batches not earlier than a day or two before serving, because juices tend to spoil and oxidize the whole drink. Anything with eggs or dairy products isn't a good option for pre-batches either. Eggs, even thoroughly shaken, separate out as flakes at the first opportunity, and dairy products can curdle from prolonged contact with alcohol. The same applies to fresh herbs, primarily mint and basil. You can't muddle them in advance, as they will quickly oxidize and lose all their freshness. Therefore, if you want to make a pre-batched mojito, you'll have to use mint syrup or something like that. And sodas. I hope I don't need to explain that carbon dioxide has a tendency to leave any liquid it is in, so you should add soda right before serving in a cocktail and not in advance. And tip number 3. Be careful with the freezer. Pre-batched cocktails are often stored in the freezer, hence the name freezer door cocktails, but only if they are strong enough. Bottled old-fashioned, Manhattan, dry martini are unlikely to freeze and explode in a standard freezer, which is usually -15 to -18 degrees centigrade. I still recommend keeping an eye on them, and at the first hint of ice crystals forming, move them to the fridge. And if you add juices to your cocktail, don't push your luck and put it in the fridge right away. And now, to the cocktails. I won't be batching Negroni today, because everyone and their grandma already made Negronis, and it's very easy. Pour about 5 ounces, 150 ml each of gin, red sweet vermouth and Campari into a half-liter bottle, and top up with about 2 ounces or 60 ml of water. Shake the bottle and put it in the freezer or a fridge. This will give you a nice strong Negroni that you can keep for quite some time, thanks to its high alcohol content and lack of juices. And I'm going to make its cousin, the Enzoni, which was invented in 2002 by Vincenzo Enrico at Match Bar in London. Think Negroni, but with citrus freshness and grape fruitiness. By the way, it's funny, I was talking earlier about how citrus juices don't store well, but all of today's cocktails will have either lemon juice or lime juice in them. But I'm not going to store them, so... This recipe requires 20 white seedless grapes. If you use red grapes and whiskey instead of gin, you can make fall Enzoni. Muddle the grapes thoroughly in a mixing glass. But can you use store-bought grape juice instead? Yes, you can, but you shouldn't. Next up is gin. I use regular London Dry, 4 ounces, 120 ml. Campari or other Italian red bitter liqueur, also 4 ounces, 120 ml. Freshly squeezed lemon juice. I don't like lemon bits floating in my drink, so I squeeze the juice and then strain it twice. Once through a regular fine strainer, and once again through an even finer strainer. You can also use a cheesecloth or a paper coffee filter. For this recipe we need 3 ounces or 90 ml of lemon juice. And rich simple syrup, which is 2 parts sugar, 1 part water. I have a whole video about how to make every syrup, check it out. 1.5 ounces, 45 ml. Enzoni is usually shaken, so be sure to add water, about 2 ounces, 60 ml. And now let's mix everything and check for balance, so you don't get in trouble later. Remember that cocktail at room temperature should be a little sweeter than it needs to be, as it will be served cold. the balance is fine, but if not, add whatever it is missing, for example gin. Fine strain to a bottle and put it in the fridge to cool completely for 3 hours minimum, or better overnight. I use half-liter bottles, but you can adapt the recipe and use any container you like, even pour into barrels. The main thing is not to miscalculate the ingredient amounts. The next day came, it had been about 18 hours, as you can tell by my outgrown hair. The bottle is nice and cold, and as you can see, nothing has separated, everything looks more than decent. By the way, I transferred it to the freezer for about half an hour before filming to chill it further, but that's optional. Take an old-fashioned glass, fill it with ice and pour our pre-batched Enzoni. One portion is about 4 ounces, 120 ml. Garnish with a couple of green grapes on a skewer. Fresh, balanced, with tart and sweet and herbal notes, a little bit of juniper flavor of gin, and a pronounced but not overwhelming bitterness of Campari, or my bitter liqueur. A great cocktail. I like it more than Negroni. I'm sorry, Negroni, I don't mean it. Next I will make a popular cocktail from the 80s, Blue Lagoon. But first, I want to remind you that you can find all the recipes in text form on my website thedrcork.com. Link is down below. And if you want to support my channel, you can join the YouTube membership or become a patron. Thanks a lot. Blue Lagoon. I decided to call it that, but more for the mighty YouTube algorithm, because this recipe is closer to electric lemonade. The main difference is that I reduced the amount of blue curacao liqueur, because it is needed solely for color, and added lemon and lime juices to get a more interesting taste. Again, for convenience, I'm using a mixing glass, to which I'm gonna add vodka. You can use white rum instead, but vodka is usually the default choice for this cocktail. 8 ounces, 240 ml. Our freshly squeezed and fine strained twice lemon juice, 3 ounces, 90 ml. Lime juice, which I also filtered twice, 3/4 ounce, 45 ml. Rich simple syrup, 2 ounces, 60 ml. And blue curacao liqueur, 1.5 ounce, 45 ml. Mix and taste. It should be too sweet and too sour, because this time I did not add water. I will dilute the cocktail later with club soda. Pour to the bottle, close it, and leave it in the fridge overnight. After a night in the fridge and about an hour in the freezer, the Blue Lagoon has chilled, relaxed, and it's time to taste it. Fill a highball glass with ice and pour about 120 ml or 4 ounces of the cocktail. But don't forget to leave room for club soda. 2 parts cocktail, 1 part soda, so about 1 ounce or 60 ml. If it's not sweet enough for you, you can use Sprite or 7-Up, but for me it will be too sweet. Stir a little. Garnish with a lemon wheel, and you're done. A bright, refreshing, citrusy taste. It's sweet and tangy due to the combination of vodka syrup and lemon and lime juices. And the blue curacao, it barely adds any flavor, but a lot of color. An easy and invigorating drink that's perfect for a summer day. If you want it to be sweeter, just as I said, add 7-Up. As I like to say, no cocktail selection could be complete without the one and only Long Island iced tea, because it's Long Island, need I explain? So to the mixing glass, add vodka, 2 ounces, 60 ml, gin, 2 ounces, 60 ml, tequila, 2 ounces, 60 ml, white rum, 2 ounces, 60 ml, and triple sec, or Cointreau if you prefer, 2 ounces, 60 ml, freshly squeezed and fine strained lemon juice, 2.5 ounce, 75 ml, and rich simple syrup, 2 ounces, 60 ml. Dilute a little bit with water, 75 ml. Mix and check for balance. Perfect. Pour to the bottle, close it, and put it in the fridge. Long Island spent an unforgettable night in the fridge, although it could be probably put in a freezer because it's pretty strong. Fill the highball glass with ice and pour our Long Island, leaving a little room for Coke. We'll need just a splash, more for color than for taste, so that the cocktail looks more like an iced tea. And garnish with a lemon wheel. Yes, again, there's nothing wrong with lemon wheels. Tastes just like a well-made shaken Long Island iced tea, as I remember it. So many memories, so many drunken nights. It's balanced and refreshing, it's a great Long Island. What more can I say? And what's more important, you'd never guess how strong it is. Tell me in the comments which cocktails do you prefer to batch, and check out my other videos. Drink responsibly, and as always, до свидос. And stay classy, San Diego.